over to the next, time management. So I would like to invite Sai Chaitanya. He is one of the alumnus of Sriraksa Institute Academy 2020 MBA. So he is also part and active member of Vahani Swachaya, Karnataka South, and active member of Vrindavan programs, especially the monthly medical camps as well as summer fun. And also recently he participated some of the activities outside of the state, Sundaram anniversary. So he works as a digital marketing executive at one of the upcoming fintech institutes in Bengaluru. Sorry.
I'd like to invoke the blessings and presence of my guide, guardian, and God, Abhinav Swami. Elders, my sisters and brothers, around everyone. So, as you're already aware, today, for the next couple of minutes, we're going to be speaking on the topic time management. Now, we'll keep it as an interactive session. I'll be asking a lot of questions to the audience. So, my first question is, how many of you have not heard of time management before? You have not heard of time management. See, all of us have heard of time management, right? So therefore, I'm going to be asking you a lot of questions. Okay? So let's start. Even if the mic is not near you, it's okay. You can answer. Anyone from the audience? What is time management? What is your understanding of time management? Anybody? Effective use of your time, okay. For what? What do you do with time?
I think it can be taken in either way. When you start your routine, you make effective use of time for your daily routine, starting with your physical exercise, and then when you go to your work, make sure that you make the time, better use of time so that you are more productive at work, right? Come back home and again don't spend time on something which is not required. Take proper rest. So it's all about managing your day, your personal and professional life with the available time.
Right. So what's your name, brother?
Chiranjeevi.
Chiranjeevi. So like Chiranjeevi brother mentioned, yes. So like the name suggests, Chiranjeevi is timeless. So, like he already mentioned, so he said you have certain time available at hand and you want to use that time to do certain tasks, right? Okay. Anybody else, she could answer why do you need time management? Because see, you already know it, right? It's very simple. You have some time, you have some tasks, you achieve those tasks within that time. Then why do we need these time management sessions, or why do we need to know about time management? Anybody?
We have only 24 hours in a day. Okay. So we want to prioritize tasks based on their importance.
Okay. Yes.
I think you know your discipline.
Sorry?
I think time management teaches you discipline.
Discipline. Okay. Yeah.
Investing the time wisely to reach our full potential.
Reach your potential. Okay.
To achieve our goals.
Achieve goals. Okay. So please, yeah, sure, please.
I think time is the only thing in the world in which we don't get back once it is passed.
Yeah, so time is very constrained. You have one certain time at hand, true. So please note the kind of words that have come, answers that have come. So somebody has said discipline, somebody else has said results, tasks, and priority, right? So just keep these words in mind because as we go forward, it is these things that we will be coming up with. So, yes.
Focus. So focus.
Yeah, to focus on your tasks, right? So we all agree that we have got a lot of things to do in the short span of our life, and we want to achieve certain goals or results, right? So life would be so easy if we just have a list of tasks and certain results that we want to achieve. We can do it in our own sweet time. But the problem comes because all of these things are time bound. So this is where the aspect of time management comes into picture. Because, for example, let's take this very summer course. So we have our organizing team, right? So they would have got some a mandate from a senior. Maybe the district president would have informed them, right, that you have to hold a 2-day summer course, and it's supposed to be on a date. He has given them that time frame that it needs to be on a particular date and it has to be only for 2 days, right? If he just says hold some course, they could go on and on, like they can maybe have it maybe 2 years later, or it could be a 10-day summer course, we don't know, right? So because it is time bound and you have to do certain tasks and you have to do certain results, that's where things become very complex and difficult. So while I would like to move forward, I just want to ask maybe somebody from the organizing team. So when you were given this mandate that you have to conduct this 2-day camp, what was the first thing that you guys did?
So we are checking initially for the time, right? What will be the days, which are conducive for the conducting this summer course, right? And other thing is about planning. Whether we can achieve all these things in those, given dates, that is other.
You have made a list of what all activities, yeah? Okay. So they did some planning. So what did they do? They made a list of what all activities we need to do, right? Should it all be only speeches? Should we have some games? Should we have some quizzes? They would have done those kind of, they made a list of everything, right? So why did they do this? Because that firstly, when they do this planning, it gives them clarity of how to proceed, right? So take your life, for example. Just each of us are from different walks of life. Some students, some are working professionals, some are married, right? Just take your life and start from the morning. What are the various tasks? Like Chaitanya brother mentioned, you have some personal tasks like fitness, exercise, and then you have office tasks, right? And when you come back home, you have some family time. So there are various tasks that you have, right? Now, so there are so many things that you need to do. So to get a clarity on what do I need to do first, how much time will I be able to finish this in, the first thing is like Mr. Napoleon Bonaparte, one of the greatest rulers of Europe. So this is a famous statement that he always uses. He was the most victorious in all his battles. And what he says is, be clear, and the rest will follow. So you wake up in the morning, okay, I'm staying in such a place, I need to do my exercises, come to this hospital for the summer course, I need to go register, have breakfast. So many things are there to do, right? Now, if you don't have, if there's a lot of confusion, you don't know what to do, you might miss out certain things. So the first tip for time management is to create to-do lists, right? So when you create a to-do list, what does a to-do list means? You pen down, or maybe you can take a note in your note, phone, iPad, etc. You create a list of all the activities that you want to do in a particular day, or so it could be daily to-do lists, weekly to-do lists, or even monthly to-do lists. Okay, so you prepare a list of all the activities that you want to do in a particular period of time, and you stick to that list, right? So that otherwise, what happens is you just go doing things like as women fancy. There will be so many things to do, and you'll be overwhelmed. And everybody comes with a common question saying, we don't have time at our hand. So in order to do that, first thing is prepare to-do lists and ensure everything is there in that list. But this is not something which I'm saying action for. It is something which is followed by a lot of business leaders as well. So this is Mr. Brian Tracy. He is a Canadian and American life coach. So let's hear in his words what is the importance of to-do lists.
Now here's something else I learned. They did a study of 50 owners of companies, successful owners of companies like yourself. And they asked them, what is the very best time management or business tool that you've ever discovered? 49 out of the 50 held up a yellow writing pad. And this is what they did. This is how they planned their day. They made a list, to-do list today. They wrote down everything they had to do. They always work from a list. If you don't work from a list, it's very much like taking your hands off the wheel of your car going down a winding road in the mountains. What happens is your life's going to go up and you're instantly going to start doing irrelevant and unimportant and useless things. And at the end of the day, you'll be exhausted and you'll accomplish nothing.
Yeah, okay. So, like you heard from Ray Tracy, if you don't have a to-do list, then it's like, driving a car without your hands on the steering wheel. Right? So you just go off-road and then your life will be like a chaos. So and this is what most business leaders also do. So first thing is create a to-do list. Now how many of you have already doing this? How many of you have already created to-do lists? Yes? Okay. So let me start here. Could you please share what do you have in your to-do lists?
5 o'clock I get up and do exercise, and then I start studying, and then all my daily routine, and then continue with whatever I have to do in the day, and then complete the task.
Okay. So your to-do list has personal items like what time you wake up, what's your exercise, etc. You're right now studying. So your to-do list will have some school assignments to complete.
Yeah,
Homework.
test preparation.
Yeah, preparing for the exam, right? And since you're in school, so when you get back home, mom would want you to wash the dishes, clean the home, yeah? So does that come in your to-do list?
Yeah.
It does, right? So see, there are so many things in the to-do list, right? Like from washing dishes to preparing for the exam to waking up, what time, doing your exercise or yoga. Now, how do you go about them? Like, should you first wash the dishes or should you prepare for the exam? What should you do? Prepare for the exam. So how do you make that decision? Priorities, right? So the first step is, like Napoleon said, gain clarity. So for that, we are preparing a to-do list, right? And then we put down all the items that we want to do for the day. The second step, like our brother already mentioned earlier and we mentioned now, is to prioritize. Okay? Because you can't do everything in the to-do list, right? So because your to-do list will go on and on and on. So therefore, the next step after preparing a to-do list is to prioritize. But before I move forward, I have a demonstration to make. So how many of you have heard of rocks, pebble and sand story? Story of rocks, pebble and sand. Okay, I think all the younger generations have already heard it. Must be trending on YouTube. So for the others, apart from this demonstration is for the others, and so I want, what do you see here right now? In my hand, there's a jar, and the jar is filled with jaggery. Okay, this is jaggery. So I don't think rocks and pebble is here. So what is easily available at home? So the box is filled with jaggery. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is open the cap, and I'm going to see if I can add more jaggery to it. Okay. So here is some extra jaggery, and I'm going to put it in the box. And now I'm trying to close the cap. What happens? The cap is not closing. Why? Because the box is already filled with jaggery, right? But watch this. I have some peanuts with me, groundnuts. Okay? I have a jar full of jaggery and I have groundnuts. You can't add more jaggery to this. But can I add peanuts to this? what happens? So even though the jar is already full, the peanuts are still entering into the jar, right? So I've filled the jar with some peanuts and I'm going to close it once again. Was I able to close it? Yes. Okay. So I hope everyone has observed this. Now I'm going to do something different. What is it? I'm going to put back the peanuts once again. Before that, the extra peanuts, I want to put them aside. Okay. So whatever peanuts were there in this jar, I'm putting it back into the empty jar. Okay. So I'm separating the peanuts and the jaggery. You will come to know shortly why. Okay. Now what I'm doing is, these peanuts which were earlier with the jaggery, they were there in this jar. I'm going to keep all the peanuts here. Please note that I've not added any extra peanuts to this. It's the same peanuts which were earlier there in the jar. I've put them back into the jar. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is, the jaggery which I removed from the jar, I'll add it back to this jar. Okay. No extra jaggery, just the same one. So what's happened? Jar is already full. There are still additional jaggery which were previously there in the jar, but now I'm not able to add it. So let me try adding that also. But you see, it's not getting added. What's the difference? The first time, there are still 2 additional pieces of jaggery which were earlier there in this jar with the same number of groundnuts. But now, same number of groundnuts, and there are 3 extra pieces of jaggery outside. I'm not able to add it to the jar. You see, so what is the difference between the first time and the second time? Structure, okay. Any other words?
You're filling larger ones first. Filling larger ones first.
Okay, so what happens if you fill larger ones first?
Smaller ones can easily fill in.
Smaller one can always fit in. And the same thing. Yeah.
In between, right? So basically what you do is that when you have a box or when you have a task of a lot of big tasks, you can add small tasks in between. But when you segregate them completely, I don't think you can put all of them together. So I think that's what.
Yeah, okay. So when I had a jar full of jaggery, like you already noticed, there were gaps in between, right? So there is always space for the groundnuts to fit in. But once I've already filled in the groundnuts, even though there are gaps between the jaggery, I can't have additional jaggery fit in there, right? So, like you said, structure, putting in the big ones first, right? So all these, in other words, is known as prioritization, right? So the jaggery here in the jar represents the important tasks or the big tasks that we need to do in a day or in a month, okay? And the groundnuts are like the unimportant smaller tasks which you can always find time fit in or squeeze in your daily schedule. So if you first go about your day doing all the unimportant ones, the ones with lesser priority compared to the jaggery which have a bigger priority, then you won't be able to complete all the tasks which are actually of importance, like the jaggery. Okay? So this is the learning here. Like I mentioned, the original demonstration, it's actually, this is not something that I invented. It's a philosophy teacher who shares this. He shares it with rocks, pebbles and sand. So let's quickly have a look at that video.
Do you have trouble deciding what tasks you should focus on? If so, then let's talk about the rock, pebbles, and sand story that can help you make an intelligent decision about your time management efforts. In this video, I will briefly retell this story and then provide a few key lessons about how to apply this story to your life. To start, here's the rock, pebbles, and sand story. A philosophy professor once stood up before his class with a large, empty mayonnaise jar. He filled the jar to the top with large rocks and asked his students if the jar was full. The students said yes, the jar was full. He then added small pebbles to the jar and gave the jar a bit of a shake so the pebbles dispersed themselves among the larger rocks. He asked again, is the jar full now? The students agreed that the jar was still full. The professor then poured sand into the jar to fill up any remaining empty space. The students then agreed that the jar was completely full. The professor went on to explain that all the items in the jar represented every responsibility and task that is part of your life. Let me explain. The rocks are equivalent to your most important projects and responsibilities, such as spending time with important people and maintaining healthy habits. This means that if the pebbles and the sand were lost, the jar would still be full and your life would still have meaning. The pebbles represent the things in your life that matter, but that you could live without. The pebbles are certainly things that give your life meaning, such as your job, house, hobbies, and friendships. They are not critical for you to have a meaningful life. These things often come and go and aren't essential to your overall well-being. Finally, the sand represents the remaining filler things in your life and material possessions. These can be small things such as watching television, browsing through your favorite social media site, or focusing on that next purchase. These things don't mean much to your life. In fact, you could argue that sand activities often distract you from what's important. If you start with the sand, then you won't have room for the rocks and pebbles. This holds true with the things you let into your life. If you spend all your time on these small, insignificant things, you'll run out of room for the things that are actually important. In order to have a more effective and efficient life, pay attention to the rocks because they are critical to your long-term well-being. These rocks can include building a career that is personally rewarding, paying close attention to your health, spending time with your family and loved ones, enjoying hobbies that add value to your life, investing your money into experiences instead of adding another possession, building a solid relationship with your spouse or significant other. While you can always find time to work or do chores, it's important to manage the things that really matter first. The rocks are your priorities, while the other things in your life are represented by pebbles and sand. So to focus on what's important, it's best to have a maximum of 5 rocks in the jar at any given time. These rocks may represent a project you want to accomplish, spending time with your loved ones, spending time with your faith, or focusing on your education. The big lesson here is if you're able to identify the important things in your life ahead of time and set aside the time you need to work on them, then it's okay to procrastinate a bit on the pebbles or the sand tasks that aren't as important. Finally, if you'd like to see more actionable strategies to help you build a better life, then please like this video and hit the subscribe button.
Before moving forward, let's look at what we have learned so far. First, we realized that when we have a lot of tasks at hand, the first thing is to have clarity of how you go about things, right? So for that, the first thing that we learned is to create a to-do list. Now, you add everything in your to-do list, like your personal goals, family time goals, office goals, or for younger generation, school, college-related goals, right? Now, since you can't accomplish everything that you do in your to-do list, you have to now prioritize and identify what are the rocks, what are the pebbles, and what's the sand, right? So it is obviously clear from the video that first you cater your time to the rocks or the high priority activities. So now you've got an understanding of what rocks are, what pebbles are. But how do you apply that to your life? Right? How do you know what, like if you look at the video, the narrator mentioned that spending time on social media is a sand kind of an activity. Now, it could be sand for somebody, but for somebody else, that could be a rock. For example, if you're a social media manager, you need to spend time on social media because you need to understand what are the ongoing trends which you can apply at work, how is your competitor performing on social media, etc. Right? So what is a rock for you could be a sand for somebody else, and what's a pebble for you could be a rock for somebody else. So how do you know what is your rock, what is your pebble? So before we get there, let's listen to what Swami has got to say.
Time is highly valuable. In the existing time, we are wasting 3 parts of it. In a day of 24 hours, we are misusing 23 hours, 55 minutes. It is not the quality of a true human being. The time must be used properly. That is the main quality of the human. That is true human value. We waste time, we will be wasting all the human activity. The day when you value time, you will be valued. If it be valued, who should be valued? Because you value time. If you waste time, the time also will not.
So what we can understand from what Swami just said is that time, Swami says, is very important and therefore we should not be wasting time. So very clearly, don't spend a lot of time on sand kind of activities, right? Now, we all know, since we are members of the Sri Sathya Sai organization, we all know what our stones, rocks and pebbles and sand are. So I would like to, for each of us, it would be a different aspect what we hear from Swami's teachings. For example, the 9-point code of conduct. It has a certain tasks, certain activities which are mentioned in the 9-point code of conduct, right? It's like basically like a daily routine. So will that be sand or will that be rocks for us? For us, in our scenario, yeah, it's inbuilt, great. But for those of us who are still get those things inbuilt, those things are rocks for us, right? We give them higher priority. So I would like to just narrate one small personal anecdote here. So it's when I was in class 12, I come across the prospectus of the Sri Sathya Sai Institute of Harry, right? And when I opened the prospectus, the first message, the first line of communication there is a excerpt, a piece, a portion of Swami's discourse which Swami gave in 1981 when he inaugurated the university. So there, in that those lines, Swami, it was written in a couple of lines. I'm just summarizing it to you. What Swami said is that this college is built for creating men and women who are professionally sound, socially responsible, and spiritually aware. Okay? So when I read those three, for me, from that point in time, it is these three parameters that define what my rocks, what my pebbles, and what my sand will be. Right? Because the reason we are going, when I had been in Swami's college, the reason Swami had set up that college or the organization or the Bal Vikas program, Swami always tells why he does that. So go back, listen to what Swami says. So for me, I took these three. That is professionally sound, being professionally sound, socially responsible. So professionally sound means being adept at whatever professional tasks that each of you are engaged in. Right? So for example, then for me, doing a LinkedIn course, when I come back home, doing a LinkedIn course or attending a webinar on negotiation skills, that will be a rock for me versus watching Suits on Netflix. Right? So that may be a sand activity. So that, like, you need to define these parameters for yourself by taking reference from Swami's discourses, quotations, etc. So now coming, like, if for example, the next one being socially responsible, so what does that mean? Like D sir mentioned, we have to go through the Grihastha stage, right? You can't say I am a spiritual person, so I am detached, practicing Vairagya. Mom tells me to wash dishes, I won't Vairagya. You can't say that, right? You have a dharma towards the society, towards your family, right? So being an ideal child, being an ideal spouse, being an ideal citizen to the society. So this is what activities fall under these. You need to add that to your to-do list and give them the amount of priority they require. So that will make you socially responsible. Likewise for spiritually aware. So what are the activities, like your daily sadhana that you practice? So these kind of activities you can add to your to-do list. Now, just to make this a little bit more clear, okay, now it is okay. So, to make it more clear, let us look at this. How many of you have already heard of this? The Eisenhower Matrix. Oh, you have already heard this? Okay, what's your name? Sorry? Karthik.
Yeah.
So, where did you hear of this matrix?
We had a life skills course.
Okay.
We had a life skills course in our college.
Yeah.
Where they did talk about the
Eisenhower
and how you like arrange your tasks and so.
Right. Okay.
Based on
That's it. So you were able to practice it?
I mean, I used to have to do list and stuff, but then later it kind of.
Okay. Yeah. So it all. What's important is all these tools are that once you are aware of Eisenhower walk, does not mean that tomorrow morning you suddenly wake up and you are expert at time management. It comes with practice, right? Even in the Bhagavad Gita, when Arjuna asks Krishna how to control the mind, Krishna doesn't say, do this and you control the mind, you're a mastermind. No. He says, Abhyasena Kaunteya. This is, it comes with practice. He says what to do, but then just keep practicing that again and again, right? So let's look at what the box says here. So any task that is on a to-do list can be, is going to be an important or urgency. Depending on the importance and urgency, they can be categorized, right? So we have important, not important, urgent, not urgent, okay? So since we are in a building which is a hospital, let's take an example of a doctor, okay? So let's say a doctor who's sitting in the reception. So he, what is, for a doctor, what is important and urgent? So, for example, the doctor sitting there, there is a line of patients who want to consult the doctor. So now it is important for the doctor to address those patients, and it is urgent because there is no one, he is the only doctor in the room. Therefore, what will he do with that? He will do it now. I don't think, is it clearly visible?
Yes.
Yeah, so what he needs to do is addressing the patients falls in the do it now matrix for the doctor. Okay? Being a doctor, when he's asking the patient, hey, you need to walk regularly, daily in the morning, or do yoga, fitness, etc. He needs to be practicing that, right? So for him, his fitness and his personal exercises is also important. But is it urgent? Should he be doing it then and there in front of the patient? No, right? So therefore, what will he do with such activities which are not urgent but are important? He will schedule it. Schedule a time to do it. For example, things like exercises or spiritual sadhana, etc. To schedule it like on a daily basis or a weekly or a monthly basis. Okay. Now, what about things which are urgent but are not important? So, in the example of the doctor once again, after he has diagnosed, looked at the patient and has understood what the problems are, who's going to type out the summary? This is the scenario, this is the age of the patient, blah, blah, blah. The doctor can't sit and keep typing all that. Because if he's doing that, the queue is going to get longer and longer, right? So it is actually not that, it is not that important for the doctor to do that, but it is urgent because unless the patient knows he's not going to move, the next patient is not going to come. Therefore, such kind of activity is going to delegate it. you have other staff sitting in the reception who are typing out those discharge summaries, etc. Right? And at work, so this box is more like at work what we do. So at work, what is not important and urgent things like watching television, social media, while you are at work, it's not important, so you delete it. In the sense, don't do it at work. Does not mean you delete it from your life, because as times change, we need to adapt to changing times. So of course it is essential to be in touch with your friends, be there on social media, etc. So but that is more like a sand activity. So you prioritize it accordingly. So this is one tool, the Eisenhower box, which will help you in prioritizing your tasks. Okay, so now what have we done? We needed clarity, so therefore we put down everything in a to-do list, what all the tasks we need to do. And then you understood that some of them are rocks, some of them are pebbles, and therefore you refer to this matrix and you identified what your rocks, pebbles are, right? Now look at, so if you look at these two, the green thing, why is it green? It's because that is what you need to do, and the red is what you either have to stop doing or delegate it to somebody else, right? So now how do we go about doing these two? For that we have something called time boxing. Has anyone heard of time boxing? Yes, sir.
I have heard of time blocking. Block the time for some important activity, like as a, you cannot say no to your boss when that's a meeting. So like that, if something is very important to you, block time.
Yeah. So time blocking is or time boxing, they're the same. So what it means is you set aside certain time during the day for certain activities, and nobody is going to disturb you during for that time. So it not only is for office related or college related activities, even for personal tasks, you can do time boxing and set aside a time. So I'm just showing you an example here. I hope it's visible at the end. So here's a friend of mine. This is his time boxing. Must be a singer, so he's having voice culturing as soon as he wakes up in the morning. So this is his time boxing for Saturdays. Okay. So he has kept a time aside that every morning at 5:30 he does voice culturing, helps in cleaning the house, then he goes for exercises and cycling in the morning. Then they have, he's doing some prayers, and being a Saturday, he's scaling up for professional, being good at profession. So this way you keep certain time set aside for these particular tasks that you have prioritized. Okay, so this is one way of how you do time boxing. While at office, like our brother already mentioned, what a good practice what people do is they set aside, say meetings are only in the afternoon, so that the morning when they come fresh, they do what important tasks what they have to actually do at work. And on the discussions, meetings, etc., they can use for the afternoon. So there you are time boxing your meetings for the afternoon only. So likewise, you can time box your events and schedule them in your calendar. For those who are not having access to phones, etc., maybe you're in a residential school or something like that. So for such people, you can just keep a tab of it in your diary and practice it on a daily basis. So that is what time boxing is. Now, interestingly, this is a concept which is made popular now due to Western listening in recent days. But we have something similar to time boxing in our Indian culture since a long time. So I actually tried, there is a very beautiful video which Swami talks about in Tribe Vrindavan. But since I'm not going to find that on the internet, therefore I'll be just explaining that to you. So this is a very interesting concept where, so what is Swami's time boxing? So basically in that video, in Tribe Vrindavan, Swami describes the 3 types of times in a day. So what are any guesses? What are the 3 types of time? Yeah, so like all the sisters here have rightly answered, Sattvic time, Rajasic time and Tamasic time. So Sattvic time means doing things like where you have time for your sadhana, for your growth, upbringing, etc. Personal growth, etc. And Rajasic time is like where you do your daily activities, like going to office, some daily mundane tasks like cleanliness, etc. Tamasic time, like it's monotonous videos, like, it's more like for taking rest, sleep, etc. Right? So what Swami says is that Swami says we have how many hours in a day? 24 hours, right? And Swami says that so you have 3 types of time. You have 24 hours. 24 by 3, 8. Right? So Swami says we need to devote 8 hours a day for each of these activities. How is it divided? Morning 4 a.m. to 8 a.m. 4 hours in the morning. 4 a.m. to 8 a.m. Swami says is considered as Sathvic time. It's the time where you do prayers, you do your meditations, sadhana, japam, etc. Okay? So that is morning 4 to 8 a.m. 4 hours. From 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. 8 to 4 is Rajasic time. It's the time where you do the day, activities of your normal day, getting ready, having your food, breakfast, etc., office work, college work, all that, right? Or house, if you're a homemaker, then all the activities at home. So that is the Rajasic time, which is morning 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. in the evening. So how many hours is that? 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. 8 hours, right? So we have so far accounted for 4 hours of Sathvic time, 8 hours of Rajasic time. So Rajasic time is done. Now 4 p.m. evening to 8 p.m. in the evening. These 4 hours in the evening are once again Sathvic time. This is the time where maybe you could read some spiritual literature, or you could also do some kind of meditations in the evening, maybe in the Japa, those kind of activities. So again, a Sathvic time, or for students, Swami used to say these are morning 4 to 8 and evening 4 to 8 are best time for studying, preparing for the exams, etc. And then the final one, which is night 8 p.m. to 4 a.m., 8 hours, is Tamasic time, time when you take rest, go to sleep. So this is a time which Swami has mentioned and how we can follow. So this is a Swami's time boxing, if you could say, and we can practice that. Now, interestingly, I think nowadays it's a little bit different, but most of the professional work-related offices, work-related tasks are 8-hour shifts, right? So it's like adjusted accordingly, and scientists say that 8 hours of sleep is essential for a human body. This is also again well fits into what Swami says. Now, quickly, I'll be summarizing Swami. Okay, before I come to this, I'll come back to this after the Q&A session. So, we'll finally close with listening to what Swami says and what are the key activities that we'll spend our time on.
First, in Purana Vajra, Yasa composed 80 epics, connected everything. He Purana Chaitanya was economic. Where are those people who can go through all these things? I have no time to read. They say we have no time to read any epic. I have no time to do Jana. And this is not business schedule. I have to study. Everyone has got his own excuse to say. It is not true. Truly speaking, if you want to think of God, there's a lot of time. He returns saying that he's tired and relaxing over there. Anyone says he's being USA, let's go to the temple. He's a fucking lazy man. Is he relaxing on the easy chair? No, he watches TV. Are you not tired to watch TV? I'm not tired to play cards. Lot of time. You are wasting time. You are misusing time. And you should make problems. That is the true human value. We should thank Don't waste the time. Time wasting is life wasting. time is God. Don't waste time. Time is like this. Time is God. So the time is the same without తెలుసుకోవాలి. We should make proper use of time. అది ఏ నిజమైన సమర్థ స్వరూపుడు. That God is time.
So in this manner, I'll just quickly summarize. So in this manner, we firstly prepare a to-do list, ensure that that list has not only your materialistic tasks, but also some things for your personal growth, for spiritual growth, etc. And then you prioritize them, identify what your rocks and pebbles are, right? And you can take your materialistic tasks, you can prioritize based on urgency and importance, based on the matrix which is shared. And like for me, and then you box certain, like you block calendars where you practice these particular tasks, especially the personal growth and spiritual growth kind of tasks. Because these are not something you do it once and it's done. It's a process. Keep doing again and again, and one fine day, without your knowing, you'll already be there. Right? So actually, there is this quote saying from unconscious lack of awareness. So you start with, you don't know that you don't know. Right? So it's unconscious incompetency. The journey goes to conscious incompetency, where you realize that, oh, okay, I don't know these things. From there you go to unconscious competency. You actually become good, but you're not aware of it. And finally, you reach a stage where it is conscious competency. You know what you're doing, right? So people like Sathya, Roger Federer, they, of course, they all started with unconscious incompetency, and they have reached the state of conscious competency. How did they go from here to there? Overnight? No. Just practice and practicing. So you time box the time for tasks like spiritual and personal growth. Keep practicing again and again. Same time, same tasks every day, and that's how we reach them. So with this, if there are any questions, I would like to take them. And just before closing, I just show that one slide which was there. So any questions? Okay, looks like everyone has understood completely. Or any questions? Yes,
Sathya. So I'm not sure if this is the exact scope of the time management presentation, but one of the issues I kind of face, like scheduling my tasks and going through my day is I tend to procrastinate. So in kind of the tips that you mentioned, are there any tips or advice you have in how you can deal with procrastination, especially with respect to important tasks?
Yeah. Okay. So like, are these your personal related tasks or office related tasks? Or what kind of tasks?
Yeah, generally it is like office related tasks, but yeah, something that requires effort.
Okay. Yeah. So one thing is, just on a lighter note, you know why Indian marriages are so grand? You invite everybody in the entire town to your marriage. Anybody? Any guesses? It's a joke. Okay, so don't serious. So why we do that is to let the whole world know that you are married to this person. So when you are thinking of leaving, you have that peer pressure, right? Everybody already knows it. So on a light note, this is a sick. But how you can apply this to your procrastination? How is that? Is you let people know that I'm going to do this task at this particular point in time, right? So in other words, it's like you're having a buddy, accountability buddy, right? So who will? So for example, you could do it even for your personal tasks as well. For example, if reading a book is a task that you have kept for yourself, okay? Now you share it with somebody, saying, hey, you find another person, a friend of yours, who is also a book reader, right? And then you are like, okay, let's read 2 pages, and at so and so time, we just text each other some questions related to this. So you quiz each other on that. So what's happening here? You're creating an accountability buddy for completing that task. Because if you don't read the book now, okay, at that particular time, your friend is going to quiz you now. And you don't have questions to quiz him back. And you don't have the answers for the questions which he has quizzed you. You don't want to get into that uncomfortable situation. So therefore, you will make it a point to read the book. Right? So likewise, even for office-related tasks, we can have this accountability buddy. Depends on what domain you're working. For marketing, it's very easy to have accountability buddy because most of the activities are group activities, whether it's content creation, distribution, ideation, it's all happening in groups. So we have accountability buddies in the after. So that is one thing you could practice, having an accountability buddy. Anything, any questions? Okay, so since
Not question, I just wanted to add to the conversation that was going on. There's one more thing. We have to understand the value of time, in the sense, I read a very beautiful quote which literally broke down every phase of time. So 1 year, how important that is. You can ask an academician, or you can ask a student who has just failed in his exam. So you will understand how important that 1 year is for that person. When you come to 1 month, you can ask a person you can ask a lady who's carrying her baby, how important 1 month means to her. When it comes down to 1 week, you can ask any person who's doing a weekly magazine how important that 1 week goes. Then if it's 1 day, likewise you can ask anybody who's having a program on 1 day. You can ask 1 hour, you can ask a TV reporter who has to make everything happen in that 1 hour. 1 minute, you can ask Usain Bolt how important that is to him. So like that, when we understand that, then we want ways to procrastinate anything. And being in with Swami, so there are so many times when we felt that we could do so many things when we were back in school in Puttaparthi or in Anantapur. It just happens that we had to fit in. There was such a beautiful timetable given to all of us. So everything fit in. So as students, so many students who are here in this hall also, you will notice that they'll know music, they'll know how to play, they'll know how to study, they'll do everything in that much time. So when we understand this way, how 1 minute, nowadays everybody is doing yoga and everything. So 1 minute plank will literally look back to the yoga instructor and is 1 minute not over yet. So when you know all these things, I think they will not procrastinate and value time more. Thank you, sir.
Yes.
I've read one book, Eat That Frog. In that they tell about do the toughest first. Well, coming to this subject, like toughest subject first we have to go through, or easiest one. What is your comment on it?
Okay. So actually this is very subjective. From person to person it varies. So this Western concept, it's leaned towards this kind of thing where you eat the frog first, which means what is the most difficult. Like it's similar to the rock, right? Priority is given to the rock, right? Similar to that. But there is an Indian concept to it as well. So I'm sorry I'm taking a little time. So the Indian concept is, you've heard of the story of Chhatrapati Shivaji. So what happened is, there was this point in time in his life where he was just losing battles he was losing battles like very poorly. Okay, so he would go with his entire army, with all his might, best strategies and attack of huge kingdom, and they would just simply outnumber him. Like he would lose the battle. So one fine day he was just going for a stroll without his guards and all that. He was walking into a village. He was very hungry and thirsty. So there's a small hut there. He walks into the hut, and he finds that there's an old lady there, a grandma. So he tells her, I'm hungry, I'm thirsty. So she says, I've just prepared khichdi. Why don't you have some? She doesn't know he's the Chhatrapati. Okay? So she serves hot khichdi in the plate and gives it to Shivaji. Chhatrapati Shivaji. What does he do? He puts his, he has to start eating, right? He takes his hand and puts it right in the bang in the middle of the khichdi. It's so hot, right? He immediately does this and the khichdi is like all over the place. And then spontaneously the old woman says, you're behaving like a king, Chhatrapati Shivaji. He is surprised. He's like, what do you mean? So then the grandma says, when you're having hot khichdi, how do you eat it? You start from the sides, where it is cooler, right? And as you keep eating the cooler part, the center becomes cooler and cooler. It's easier to handle the khichdi, right? So she tells, without knowing that he's Chhatrapati Shivaji, she tells him that there is this guy, our emperor, who's going with his entire army and attacking all the strong kingdoms. Obviously, he's going to lose the battles. There are a lot of smaller kingdoms around. He can first go and conquer those. It will add to his resources, add to his army strength, right? and then he can go and attack the stronger kingdoms. So he learns, oh, this is a very good lesson, he goes back, he does that, and we know the history, right? So this is the Indian concept where you don't need to frog first. You first do the simpler ones, then so you get that motivation, you have confidence, and you then handle the quicker ones, the difficult ones. So it's more of perception, what applies to you, and you can practice. Okay, so I think for want of time, you have one question? Okay, last question.
So this is pertaining to studies. So I set time to study a particular topic, but the challenge that I face is that I never completed within the time. So like how do I go about that?
Okay. So this is okay, I have this two things quickly. So when it comes to studies, the easiest way to learn something, Swami himself said, is to write and learn. So Swami says, when exam ki aim chestaru, what do you do when you go to an exam? Rastaru, you write. When you are studying, when you are learning, preparing for the exam, aim chestaru, chaduvuta, you are reading. You read when you practice, when you prepare, but you go there and write. So reading and writing, there is no matching. So that's why it becomes difficult. What Swami says is, when you are preparing for the exam, write. So you write and practice, and when you go to the exam and you are writing there, it's easier. So this is one thing you could try. This second, you will make it easier to learn quickly. Second thing is, there is this technique called Pomodoro technique. You've heard of Pomodoro technique? So you could do that, where you are having a very, let's say you're studying company law, or what course are you doing, sister?
Data science.
Okay, data science. So you have a very complex subject, okay? So what do? If you sit and try to, it's like eating the frog. You're trying to do the entire thing, it becomes very difficult to handle. So you study for 25 minutes, take a 5-minute break, and then come back, study for 20 minutes, and then take again 3-minute break. Then come back, study for 10 minutes, and take a 1-minute break. So this is the Pomodoro technique, where you do a task, take a break, then go back to the task but reduce the time, take a break, again reduce the time. So like that, you'll be able to overcome. Okay, so that's it. I'll just close with this one slide that I have left. Okay. Yeah. So, two things. How late is 1 minute? Okay, before that, is on time also late? Okay, any questions? I mean, any thoughts on this? Is on time also late? What do you guys think?
If you come early, then I think you are messing the schedule of the previous
Okay.
it shouldn't be, too early. I think you should be bang on time. You shouldn't be wasting time on others, right? Because if you come late, then just one person's 1 minute is wasted, you have wasted the time of other. Maybe let's talk about this session when about 100 of people because
Right, okay. So this is actually what is very popularly followed in the Western world. Where if you look at, and at least I've personally experienced this, when you're having calls with your American or European teams, they deliberately come 2-3 minutes late. Deliberately come 5 minutes late. Why? Because it's like a perception that we are too busy with this, so we just finished that and come here. So that's something which they do. But on the Indian aspect is a little bit different where what you mentioned is right, that if you come early, you may be wasting others' time. But the thing is, what if coming early may not be dependent on others working, right? So I just want to narrate one incident. I have an alumnus by name Akshay Kamal. There is this brother who he got his first job in 2008. He was working in the Taj Hotels, okay? So in Mumbai. And during those, nowadays, promotions and hikes you expect to get in just 6 months, right? You're expecting an appraisal to happen every 6 months. Yeah, but in those days, so that I think the Gen Z expected to happen every 6 months. So, but in 2008, that's like almost 15 years back, it will happen maybe 1.5 to 2 years after you get to your role. But this brother, he got his first appraisal and promotion and hike within 9 months of his first job. And the manager, when he gave him the promotion, he quoted the reason. Any guesses what the reason for this promotion was? The reason was that in the past 9 months, not one meeting has passed where you were not early by 15 minutes. So if a meeting is there at 9, you would be ready for it by 8:45. Those days it was not online, right? Most of it was offline meetings. And being in hospitality industry like hotels, it was more offline in hotels. So he made it a point that in the entire 9 months, every meeting that they've had, he was there 15 minutes early. This is the point which his manager observed, and he got a promotion based on that. So and the previous company which I worked for, the CEOs often say that early is on time, and on time is late. So it again, just like eating the frog and the khichdi, we have a lot of perceptions, a lot of opinions and debates. What applies to us, we can go for that. Final, I'm just closing with it, is how late is 1 minute? I think you've already, Chaitanya brother has made a mention about it. So this is, let me narrate a story which happened in college many years back in Swami's college. This particular teacher, he was held up with certain work. So by the time he entered the class, he was already 5 minutes late to the class. Anyways, he comes, he teaches, class is over, to go back. After college, everybody goes to Mandir for darshan. So when he was in Mandir, Swami asked this particular teacher, why were you late? So Swami, some work was there, so I was late to the class. Swami said, how late were you? He said, Swami, by 5 minutes. Swami said, wrong. So no, Swami, I was late by 5 minutes. Swami said, no, wrong. You were much late. We didn't understand. And then Swami explained that when you, in the class, let's say there were 5 students, right? So he was late by 5 minutes, and each of those 5 students, their time was wasted by 5 minutes. So 5 into 5, 25, plus this 5, he was late by 30 minutes to the class. Is what Swami told that person. So how late is 1 minute late? Like Swami said and like we was pointed out. So if you, like in this kind of gathering, we have 50 people here, and we delay by a minute, it's like we are delayed by 50 minutes. So that's the importance that Swami gives to time. So yeah, punctuality is something that Swami gives a lot of importance. So let's practice these tools and techniques, and yeah, I'm sure that you're all silent.
Thank you, Chaitanya. Your words on quality of utilization of time and purpose of Sathya time was really useful. I would now request you to please collect the token of love.